Hi, my name's Hank. I'm new to YouTube, so this is one of the first videos I made. So if I seem a little scrambled, I most certainly apologize. But I'm trying to focus my energy when I get on here on addressing issues or concerns that, well, have affected me directly, but could affect you as well. And one of the things that I would like to take time to talk about right now is Kratom. There's a lot of speculation going on right now. The FDA has actually taken the approach to try to have Kratom made illegal and have it banned. The FDA has actually gone through illegal processes to have a emergency hearing to have Kratom listed as a Class 1 felon to sell, distribute, or even use. And that's unfortunate. And I'll get into the reason of why that would be so unfortunate if Kratom was to be banned. But I would like to focus the energy right now on addressing the fact that the FDA tried to force an emergency hearing, for one, which, if the hearing was to be held, it would have left the situation without proper representation from people that support the use of Kratom. So what the FDA was trying to do is sneak a little one in behind everyone and try to have Kratom taken away without giving the common citizens, you and I, the opportunity to be heard. During their processes, the FDA spent millions of dollars. And remind you, those dollars are taxpayer dollars. But millions of dollars were spent by the FDA to try to prove that Kratom is dangerous. Now, a little information on what is Kratom. Okay, Kratom is a member of the green tea tree. Literally, it is a green tea tree family member. So that the product of Kratom is tea. So it is called Kratom tea. And you just pick it off the tree, dry it out and grind it up and make it into a powder and use it. You could either wash it, douse it, wash it, or mix it with something. I'll go into that in a minute. Now, the FDA, like I said, has spent millions of dollars trying to prove why Kratom is bad. They have addressed that 47 deaths have occurred from the use of Kratom, caused by Kratom, since 2012. Well, it's 2019, and you're trying to identify Kratom as the cause of all those deaths over that period of time. Let's take into retrospect of the deaths caused by smoking. Thousands a year, right? I mean, people are even dying from drinking caffeine. You hear people die all the time from drinking stuff like Red Bull and Monsters, but yet those are still available to you and I, you know? And actually more deaths have been caused or resulted from using Red Bull or Monster than that of Kratom. So there are scientists, renowned scientists around the world, that have decided to challenge the FDA. And there's a little party that typically sides with the FDA when going through the process of banning an item or generating the information to support the idea to ban it. But everyone has flipped and decided that maybe Kratom's not so bad. Millions of people use Kratom a day. Millions. I use Kratom. And from my experiences, I have had nothing but good results. I have suffered or endured countless injuries from my active duty when I was on active duty during military services. Now, I sustained injuries while on active duty. I just want to make that clear. And I was hospitalized for a significant period of time. And during that time, I was being treated for my pain with the use of ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer, and one of the strongest elements that can be used to treat pain. But for those of you that know what ketamine is, I was going through the infusion. At the start, I was doing it twice a week, and then they tapered me down to once a week, and I did this for months. On top of that, I was being issued Dilaudid extended release, which is a very strong drug, hydrocodone, oxycodone, oxycontin, and countless other narcotics. At any given time, I could have pulled out 4 or 5 bottles of narcotics out of my pocket that were issued to me to help treat me for the pain that I was going through. Now, during this process, if you've ever had to take narcotics or know of anyone that has, you also know that narcotics has a natural tendency to induce a negative mindset. It can cause depression. And it did for me. I was severely depressed. I attempted suicide twice, even. It wasn't me. I regret the fact that I did, and I'm not bragging that I tried to commit suicide, but it happened. And from all this, I developed severe depression, not to mention my post-traumatic stress disorder that I had from my active duty. Then I had severe chronic pain from head to toe from all the injuries I had. And the only thing that I was being given was narcotics. And it wasn't until recently that our government had decided to go against narcotics and make it more difficult to get, which is good. But for many people out there suffering chronic pain of all sorts, that's the only legal means of pain control they had until Kratom. I didn't know anything about Kratom until I moved to where I live now. And my brother-in-law introduced it to me. He knew of my medical conditions with depression and PTSD and the chronic pain. And he recommended that I try Kratom. And I got to looking it up and learning a little bit more here and there. I was skeptical at first because I heard about the 47 deaths and whatnot. During my investigation, so to speak, I learned that the 47 deaths were actually a result of what is known as a polydrug death, meaning there were multiple drugs found in the victim's system. And in this case, Kratom was found in traceable amounts in each of the victims and was even said to not have been consumed within the 24 hours of the deaths of the victim. But the drugs that were the cause of the death were either drugs like heroin, crack, cocaine, meth, and even alcohol. And those limits were at toxic levels. And they were identified to be the ones that actually caused the deaths. But because Kratom was in a traceable amount, it can be associated with the death. So rather than presenting the cause of deaths to society as a polydrug death, and Kratom was in there, the FDA just said, hey, Kratom caused the deaths. But the autopsies reveal opposite stories of that. There are so many medicinal application purposes behind Kratom. For me, it has helped me with depression. It has helped me with my PTSD. It has helped me with chronic pain. I would walk around, and if you've ever experienced this, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. In the middle of a day, it could be clear as could be outside, not a cloud in the sky, sun is out. But when I would walk around, it would feel like there was a cold shadow. It could be hot outside, but it just seemed like a doom and gloom situation. No matter where I was at, what I was doing, everything seemed darker. And then for my PTSD, because of my anxiety and what other aspects of PTSD that causes a person to react, it was difficult for me to be in places where there were multiple people. And the more crowded the place was, well, the worse things got. I'd even gotten to the point where I nearly would pass out because I was so anxious and worried about so many other things that I couldn't enjoy what I was at that event for. And then the chronic pain. I mean, I have sustained countless injuries. I have had to go through just as many, if not more, surgeries to repair those injuries. And from skull fractures to spinal fractures to ribs to legs. I mean, it's all been there, okay? And I mean, it came with the work I did. I understand it, and I wouldn't change a thing if I could, because it's made me who I am today. And when I started using Kratom, I noticed that doom and gloom feeling would subside during the time I was taking the Kratom. I noticed that my anxiety decreased, allowing me to be around more people and to reassociate myself with society. And the best part of it was how it relieved pain. Pain. Narcotics didn't have an effect on controlling my pain anywhere near the capabilities of what Kratom did. I'm not saying that Kratom was a miracle cure and it took away all my ailments, but it helped enough for me to reacquaint myself into society. And that's a big deal because as human beings, our nature is to be social. And if you're not able to be social, then you find yourself standing alone. And this world can be lonely enough without you actually not having people in your life. But I found that Kratom allowed me to be able to be in places and do things that I normally couldn't or wouldn't be able to. I find myself able to interact with my children more often and longer when I consume Kratom. I'm not going out and running marathons, but I can play freeze tag or hide and seek. I'm not running, but, without the Kratom, I couldn't do those things. For one, the narcotics would give you that natural droll feeling where you just feel either sick or just too tired to do anything. Kratom didn't do that. I had the energy. I had the drive. I had the focus. That's another thing that has been found out about Kratom. Kratom has also been associated with learning. Yes, it increases a person's attention, and apparently people are able to focus and learn better after having taken Kratom. Drug addicts, alcoholics, millions use Kratom to try to curb that. For those that have gone through withdrawal, you understand when I say withdrawal is painful, you know what I'm talking about. You understand the achiness, the tightness, the feeling of your skin crawling, or the pins and needles, or the burning. Heck, I felt like I was being stabbed even. And heaven forbid if you get to the point of withdrawal where you're actually having convulsions, which is what I was at. Once I learned that my body had become addicted to narcotics, I lost my mind. I mean, being in the military for as long as I was, and being held to a standard of not smoking marijuana, zero drug tolerance, I'll say, to being addicted to a drug because that's your only outlet to get relief from the pain, that's insane. So I forced my doctors to not give me narcotics, which ultimately landed me back in the hospital for about a week going through severe withdrawal. And that's when I became acquainted with Kratom. And for me, it helped keep my mind clear. I lost the desire. For addicts, you find yourself wanting and almost feeling like you need the drug or the alcohol, and you even start to shake. I mean, that's just the early signs of withdrawal. Those things are the things that Kratom helps curb. It takes away that need, that desire. Your mind doesn't get infatuated with the idea of having the drugs or alcohol, and it makes it easier and the transition much smoother. So for me, Kratom has been a lifeline. It has helped me survive. And the FDA is wanting to have it taken away. The FDA says, yeah, you ban Kratom today, and we, the FDA, will make a substitute. But it'll take 10 years. So for 10 years after the call to make Kratom illegal, the FDA will present a substitute. Well, the millions of people relying on Kratom today will be forced to find other means to control their situation, whether it's depression, PTSD, pain, other addictions such as drug or alcohol, and whatever element. I mean, even students could use Kratom like a person would use coffee. It helps people focus and stay awake. But I feel that Kratom doesn't give you that jitteriness or that sensation to feel sick. Now, can that happen? Absolutely. Just like anything else, Kratom needs to be consumed smartly. You can't just go and ingest an overabundance of Kratom because it will make you sick. I mean, would you go out and take a bunch of caffeine pills to stay awake? I mean, yeah, 1 or 2, that should keep you going. But would you shove like 5 or 6 of those caffeine pills in? Some of you probably would. I know I have at times when I was extremely tired. But with Kratom, you don't need that. You don't have that desire. It has a clean effect. It doesn't give you that gnawing feeling where you feel sick or jittery. There have been reports where people do feel sick. There have been claims of going through withdrawal. There is not a chemical in Kratom that is addictive. I'm sorry. It's 100% natural. And there's nothing addictive about Kratom. And like I said, it is 100% a member of the green tea tree family. Now, the FDA says that they will provide a substitute in 10 years, but we've learned since this claim was made that the director of the FDA stepped down, okay? And it's, to my understanding, the individual was informed that if he develops this substance to replace Kratom, it will be a government process and he would not receive the full benefits of making this. So he steps down. He puts a person in his place as the FDA director that supports his perspective, I guess, and they're pushing to make this illegal. Now, if Kratom is banned and made illegal, and the FDA proceeds and succeeds in what they're trying to do with making a substitute, they stand to make billions of dollars. But if they fail and they lose, and Kratom is allowed to stay in society the way that it is, well, for some states, I understand some states have already made it illegal, but if it is allowed to stay, the FDA will lose millions of dollars. So, I mean, you can understand the conspiracy theory on this, and it's pretty logical. And if you follow the reports, you can see the pattern yourself. It's not so much a theory, it's actually in process. Okay? So, I recommend that if you have any questions or concerns about Kratom, do some research. Learn the differences, different strands, and learn what they do. Understand that a person taking it should take it sensibly and not try to overdo it, okay? Because you can have too much of a good thing, and too much of a good thing can turn into a bad thing, okay? For an example, for me, when I go to make my Kratom, I make it into a tea. Oops, I apologize. I dropped it. I take it and put it in a container. This is what's left of what I've been drinking. I use my Keurig. That's perfect. The Keurig is perfect to use because it doesn't produce boiling water, which has a bad effect on Kratom where it neutralizes some of the active agents. So you get hot water to make the agents in Kratom active so that they can do what they necessarily do when your body absorbs them. But I've also learned and researched that you can enhance the desired effect merely by just putting lemon juice in it. Apparently, citric acid creates a more desirable effect. So does stuff like garlic, ginger. So what I'll do is I'll take 2 level teaspoons of the desired Kratom for whatever I need it for, whether it be Mangda red for the pain, or white for the mind, or the green for the body. But sometimes I mix them. It's been said that it's better to mix them because your body can develop a tolerance. So to prevent the tolerance, you mix them up and keep your body honest. Now, about the tolerance, the more you take in, the more likely your body will develop a tolerance. So if you're like hammering it down like every 5 minutes, your body will develop a tolerance and you will never reach the desired effect. So that means you should take it sensibly, okay? And by taking 2 teaspoons, which I had to work up to because, like I said, it will give you that energy effect where you feel driven and you want to work your way into it. You don't want to just jump because it could make you sick. So I started off initially with 1 teaspoon And then now I'm up to 2 teaspoons. But I take 2 teaspoons twice a day. I mix it with lemon juice and ginger, or lemon juice and garlic, in my cup. And I run the hot water from the Keurig. And then once the hot water gets in there from the Keurig, I mix up the lemon juice with the ginger or the garlic. Stir it up really good. Let it sit and start to cool down. About the time that it gets to room temperature, then you pour the lemonade into the glass. And there you go. You have your ginger-flavored lemonade Kratom tea. And it's pretty tasty. And I do it once in the morning when I first get up. And then right about noon, I do the second. So it gets me through the day. And then at nighttime, I'm good to go. So if you're going to try out Kratom, do it sensibly, but pay attention to how it acts with your body. And share it with other people so other people can learn. Don't let the FDA dictate our judicial process and rights to have representation on Kratom. Okay? Because Kratom, the more investigation you do, the more you'll learn that Kratom is not anywhere near as bad as what the FDA is trying to convince everyone of. But they're doing it because of the benefits that they can have once it is made illegal. So if you try it, hey, I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. HanK.